Before this video begins, you may realize things like Agatha, or the blue guys, will be mispronounced by the text-to-speech narrator. Some examples could be but are not limited to Tenosia, or the Desert Boys. Various names of lands and kingdoms, and most importantly, names like Phaedrud. A timestamp for the summary of the lore will be on the screen right now. Our story starts right after Agatha succeeds in destroying the capital of the Trajan citadel, putting an end to the Vantir province, and ultimately winning the war. We don't exactly know what this war was about, but thanks to King Alfonso Argon, Agatha is united once again and crowed as one of the greatest armies in this era. But peace wouldn't last long. In 1266, a crusade is launched against the people of South Tenosia. Roughly 6 months after the last Vantir war ended. This was apparently for no good reason. Some speculate King Argon was simply bored, as others think it was due to greed. The people of Tenosia were quite barbaric, and not fit for war. As Tenosia carried about their day, Agatha sharpened their swords and brought halberds to arms. Even going so far as to include the king's own nephew, Darnam Argon. In the crusade, as the army prepared for war, two main characters arise. The first one being Steward Phaedrud Kern, with the king and his royal family sailing out to war. Steward was appointed as temporary king, being known as the greatest warrior in Agatha and a close friend of Argon. He would rule Agatha from a city up north, called Coldfront. But down back in the war camp sat the greatest Agathan general, Malric Terrorin. Unlike the rest of the generals and knights, Malric had his doubts about the crusade. Thinking swiftly, Malric would call back the elite fighting force that he had assembled in 1263 to command during the war with the Vantir. He ordered the elite to spread out and find knights and footmen worthy enough to join their elite ranks. This unit was proudly named the Mason Order. After months of preparation, our two factions sailed out to Tenosia for their crusades. Just as the king expected, the population was not expecting a surprise attack, leading to an easy invasion. The beaches were seized and a few port cities were captured, all before the Tenosian government fully found out what exactly was going on. Although things took a turn for the worse when our crusading armies melted in the hot Tenosian desert, ill-equipped for such climate. The crusading army was also quickly bogged down by casualties and progression was halted by quick defense forces made up of Tenosian locals. Still, King Argon's pride would not allow him to retreat back to Agatha without a total victory over the thought to be inferior Tenosian armies. Leading his royal guard and his nephew, Argon II, straight into enemy territory, never to be seen again. This is when the two factions split off from each other. Malric and the Mason Order sailed off to the mainland to notify the people of their defeat, and potentially take over. And King Argon's second most trusted general, Sir Finian, which took control of the remaining Agathan forces and searched for the royal family, still believing them to be alive. As soon as the Mason Order landed back onto Agathan soil, Malric sent messengers out to spread the word of their pointless defeat and the death of King Argon, which didn't fare well due to no proof of King Argon's death. But despite that, Malric then put his plans into motion and proclaimed himself as the new king. He then set about making a capital for the Mason Order. Malric chose to rebuild the fortress of Aran that was once the Trajan citadel, due to his respect for the Vantir. The Vantir believed that strength was everything, similar to how Malric had built the order within the Agatha Knights. Lord Terrorin would gain command of well over half of the country of Agatha by the time his new citadel was complete, despite Phaedrud's best efforts to halt the order's progress. But due to the location of Phaedrud's castle, the messages arrived much too late for him to react. The war with words would continue for months, due to both leaders not knowing the other's location. This would change when Phaedrud would send a letter to Sir Finian Guld, telling the knight that their home country was in danger from the Mason Order. The letter would never arrive, as a Mason spy would deliver it to Malric instead. He would send an ambassador to an old enemy of King Argon's in the barbarians of the south. However, Malric made a critical error in seeking aid from the southern people, for some still remember him as the one that commanded the past conflicts against them for the late King Argon. So, while most of the southern barbarians would join with the order, a select few would travel to the Coldfronts to warn Steward Phaedrud of Malric's plans. The Agathian barbarians would then stay in the cold front to protect the Stuart from their old enemy. Malric Teruin would order his two finest Mason commanders, Sir Marcus Teach and Sir Beal Stronghelm, to lead an assault on the cold fronts to wipe Stuart King Theodred from the face of Agatha. However, back in Tenosia, Finian Gold's campaign to find the royal family would succeed, for the most part. Prince Darnam Argon would be found alive and well, and he agreed to be king if Steward Theodred would support him, and while Theodred's letter for help was lost, Finian's letter to Theodred would not be. Stuart Theodred would send a very brief reply, stating that he would support Darnam Argon as king, and that the Mason Order was at his doorstep. Not truly understanding the meaning of the latter part of the letter, Sir Guld and the Agatha Knights would sail home with all haste. Once Finian returned with King Darnam, he received reports of Agathian ships being fired upon by an unknown force. When his main fleet reached the largest port of the country, named for the vast hillsides that surrounded it, he saw banners of red flying high over the city. When his ships approached, they were greeted with trebuchet fire. After a brief battle in the harbor, Finian would retreat. Here, upon these two fronts, is where our quest begins. Will you join the Agatha Knights and fight for the true king of Agatha? Or will you join the Mason Order and herald in a new age of steel and fire? For that guy we like. And that weird looking angry cat thingy. For the Iron Fist. For the Order. TLDR. After winning a war, King Argon calls the Knights of Agatha to arms and launch a crusade against peaceful lands, only to be defeated and have the Mason Order arise from the ashes and dust, to sail back to their rightful land and restore order. Only to find that years later, the actual king never died and has come to reclaim his throne.